Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. This is Annika Jackson with Your Brand Amplified, and I am so thrilled to have somebody from all the way around the world, Madagascar, while I'm here in little California. And I have an amazing designer, Eileen Akbaraly, here to share her journey, her brand, and her quest to help create a more sustainable life for everybody through fashion. Eileen, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Me too. I love speaking to innovators who are trying to bring some good into the world. And so I'd love for you to talk about your background first and foremost, and what led you into fashion, and then we'll unweave your project, no pun intended,
okay,
in Madagascar.
Okay, great. So I'm Eileen. I grew up in Madagascar. My mom is originally Italian, but my father is third or fourth generation Gujarati Indian in Madagascar.
Oh, wow.
Therefore, Madagascar is my home country. This is where I grew up all the way till I was 18. I studied and lived here because I'm here again. So I guess Madagascar is, I don't know if you know a little bit about the context of the country, but it's a beautiful country in terms of flora and fauna. Like 80% of the world's biodiversity is found only on this island. So there's great nature and it's very unique to the country, but it's also considered one of the poorest countries in the world, which is something I always suffered from, honestly, growing up in such a poor country with so much difference in terms of social status.
Yeah.
Growing up in Madagascar, my mother has her own foundation against cancer and she had a bunch of orphanages. So when I was very small, my mother would bring me with her to hospitals, to orphanages. So I really grew up in an environment regarding, giving back to others, service. So it's always been part of who I am and what I do. I also founded a small NGO with two of my best friends in high school where we helped more than 50,000 children in hospitals, in schools, in prisons. So I've always been very involved in giving back as much as I can. Obviously, I take it as a responsibility. And then when I turned 17, I left the country to study. And this is where I decided to go to Rome. I decided to study anthropology, archaeology, sociology.
Oh, nice.
I've always been very interested in understanding how people work, why they work, why certain things are the way they are. And I think that's the aspect of fashion that interests me the most. Every day, we wake up and we dress up a certain way to express our identity. And I think it's so strong and it's a way of communicating. And it's important for everybody. And also regarding the whole behind the scene, I've always been very interested in artisans and the people who are not at the spotlight of fashion. Today, fashion being the second or third most employed sector in the world, it affects so many people in developing and underdeveloped countries that it has, such an impact in the world in general. So I guess that's always been very interesting for me, living in one of the poorest countries in the world that has an insane craftsmanship. But how do you put all of this together? How do you create a world where you can, put fashion, the social impact part, biodiversity all together? So after Rome, I went to work in India with an haute couture brand. I worked in their factory in the commercial area where I saw a lot of injustices in the differences between the factory and the commercial area, where they would sell amazing outfits for more than 50,000 euros. And then the factory's working conditions were really bad. So that was a bit harsh and I just didn't really accept that. And so therefore I went back to Italy and I studied fashion business in Milan and finished with a master's degree in Paris regarding CSR, corporate social responsibility. So that's kind of my, history regarding what I did before I started Made for a Woman.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I love all of the intersectionality and how you found your path through your own passion, right? You had your parents who had their passions, but then you were able to say, what's really important to me and how can I show up in the world?
Exactly.
So, and it's hard for people to find that at a young age. So kudos to you for realizing that even when you were in high school, how you wanted to propel yourself on a path to helping and giving back and serving others. And then going and, being able to find all these passions. So tell us about Made for a Woman. You talked about the biodiversity, the craftsmanship, the lack of financial resources in Madagascar, but the beauty that surrounds it and the natural resources that were available. So what was the impetus behind Made for a Woman, and what were the steps you had to take to get it started?
So it's very interesting that you mentioned that. I've wanted to do this since the age of 8. So I am very lucky that I've always known Made for a Woman was exactly what I wanted to create. It was my thesis in university as well. Obviously, it's not exactly the same thing because it's a lot of trial and error. But in 2019, I created Made for a Woman with the objective of improving the overall quality of life of people in Madagascar. So the first thing I did was really, I started working with raphia, which is a fiber that comes from a palm tree. But I had no idea what it was either, So for me, it's all about transparency and giving as much information as possible to the consumer. I've always been extremely empathetic and very sensitive to all of this. So I just really put myself in that place. And I said, as a consumer, what would I want to know? What would I want the brand to teach me, So this is kind of how it started. And even before I created the atelier space, I decided to go film the supply chain of the raphia palm tree. And I did this with a good friend of mine who is a freelance at National Geographic. So the first thing that we did was, let's do some research. Let's find certified suppliers. Living in Madagascar, finding certified suppliers is really impossible almost. But after doing a lot of research, I did find a company that was actually certified. And we went there and we filmed the whole supply chain. It's the first mini documentary that exists regarding the raphia palm tree, which we then presented at the Festival de Cannes in 2021 and won an award for our sustainable commitment.
Amazing.
So that's where it started, understanding what your raw material is to then be able to understand how to make it work, how it works. What do you want to sell to your consumers? What do they need to know? What do they want to know? And I think it's so important that brands feel responsible enough to give the correct information to their consumers. And it's kind of what we did. And then from there on, I created Made for a Woman, where today we work with more than 350 artisans, specifically from very marginalized backgrounds. We have a convention with the Minister of the Population and local associations. We specifically work with disabled individuals, sex workers, prostitutes, single mothers, GBV survivors.
Oh my God.
And created a space, this amazing space, where not only do we give them financial stability, today we are WFTO certified, and therefore our wages go above living wage. But we also give them psychological and emotional support. We work with social assistant workers, psychologists, doctors. We have a childcare area. We have dance therapy classes. So we created an ecosystem, a 360 degrees ecosystem where production isn't our priority, but it's really prioritizing the human factor and showcasing to consumers and other sustainable businesses around the world that by putting humans first, you can still be a successful enterprise.
Yes. I was going to share all of this, but I have an orphanage in Ghana.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And we pay for children's education. We have organic farming as our mechanism. So we have organic farm that we've currently have been leasing land for about 10 years. And now we're getting ready to do a fundraiser to buy double the acreage of farmland so that we can do things we couldn't do, like plant trees and plant other crops that will help with the soil retention. That's why one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you, because I just love the heart that you have and the fact that it is true. You can't just be focused on one thing. You have to really focus on the whole person, because if you don't heal who they are, give them opportunities that they wouldn't have to have other kinds of jobs and livelihoods and get the other treatments they need. This is a generational impact, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
So taking all the hundreds of years of generational trauma and helping change that so that the next generation, the generation after that, have a chance for hope and have a chance to do something else and can see their mothers in a different light. So thank you for doing that, first of all.
It's so beautiful what you're saying. Absolutely.
And I also wanted to say that, I've spoken to many sustainable brands. I love sustainable fashion. We hear a lot of people use those words, but not a lot of brands speak to their values the way that you are. And going on your website, I love that you showed exactly how much money, what percentage was going into each aspect of the work. So whether it was the transportation logistics, how much you were paying the women, the sourcing of the materials, even the markup if we're a boutique, right? Mm-hmm. So it's such a transparent process. And I think a lot of people say, oh, I'm sustainable because I use this and this, but they don't show the intentionality to the degree that you do.
I agree. I'm so glad that you mentioned this about the price transparency. I'm still far from being where I'd like to be with the price transparency in general, but it's a first step, you know? Honestly, that's how I think everything should work. I mean, a consumer is, you know, you create loyalty, you create credibility. I think creating an honest dialogue between your company and your consumer is the most important thing that creates, you know, long-term loyalty. It's so important. And today with technology where everyone can know anything at any moment, it's even more important. You can't lie anymore. It's all about honest communication, and it's essential for a company to grow.
Yeah. And I mentioned before we got on that I teach university, one of my many hats. And for the digital media management program, a lot of the students, well, they all have to create a capstone project. And so a lot of them are want to create ones around sustainable fashion, or sustainability being a hub for products. And so we have a lot of conversations in class, though, because I also have students who are working, going to school, single moms, very limited budget.
Okay.
And so they talk about that aspect, right? So I think I would love for you to talk about that push-pull, because it can be so easy here in the United States to order online and get a huge box of fast fashion that you might wear once or twice, and then it goes to landfill because you want to keep up that trend. Or for kids, going to a place like a Target or a Walmart or a big box place where the clothes aren't going to be fashionable, they're dysfunctional, but you know your children are going to grow out of them fast. So I'd love for you to talk, because I know that's not the arena of fashion that you're existing in, that you do really beautiful bags and carpets and all kinds of things. So I'd love for you to talk about the intentionality behind the products that you do put to market. And then also, how do we bridge that divide between we want to do good for the earth, we want to support sustainable companies, but we also know that sometimes means it's a little bit higher price range than these other items that we can replace quickly and we don't really care about, but then we're really hurting the earth by purchasing those.
Totally. So Made for Women specifically focuses on natural fibers. So our products range from accessories like hats, pochettes, bags specifically, all the way to ready-to-wear and home decor pieces. We actually launched our first home decor ready-to-wear collection in Milan Fashion Week last year that had a great feedback, and actually started selling it commercially this year in a multi-brand luxury store in Paris. And we're actually starting to integrate ready-to-wear raphia in our collections.
Okay.
We specifically work a lot with recycled raphia. Recycled raphia means what? 30% of the raphia that is bought goes and is thrown away because, unfortunately, due to the length of it, the quality of the color, you know, a lot of clients don't accept a certain type of quality. And therefore, what we decided to do, so instead of burning this raphia or throwing it away, we decided to integrate it into our collections and create one-of-a-kind recycled rainbow pieces.
Oh, nice.
Super colorful collection. Actually, 10% of our B2C right now is focalized only on our recycled raphia.
Oh, nice.
So this is definitely a part of the world that we're trying to enter, the whole recycling, upcycling. We also work a lot with recycled cotton, which, like you say, you know, a lot of, you know, these clothes, fast fashion clothes go into landfills, or, you know, Africa is known as the continent where you throw away your garbage. And so there's this huge problem of secondhand fabrics and clothes in Africa in general. We've been working with local artisans where they go and they buy different outfits in these markets, and then they unyarn the yarns and resell the yarns at a lower price so they can sell it and make money out of it. And we support this. And so we mix this up with our raphia. So we're really, you know, creating a bunch of new outfits and just new innovative ways to, you know, be useful for the environment, which has been really great. At the same time, we're working a lot with luxury brands. At the moment, we've been working a lot with brands coming from the LVMH house. Yeah. So different brands. However, we've also been working with Chloé. So the brand Chloé, which is the French brand, with whom Gabrielle Hearst was creative director for around 4 years, if I'm not wrong. So we actually worked on our first capsule collection with them last season, where it was Made for a Woman for Chloé. And now we're working on other collections for them. And we're also working really closely with their sustainable team, because our objective is to become Corp B by the end of 2024, which gives, you know, what you were saying, the credibility to, you know, a consumer regarding the sustainable brand. In my opinion, today, though, I don't think all certifications and audits work in a very bottom-up approach, unfortunately. I don't think they all do assess correctly the way certain developing or underdeveloped countries work. However, I do think that these audits and these tools are extremely important to create a more unified relationship between a consumer and its brand. And this is why I believe that Made for a Woman is and will keep investing in audits and in certifications.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I like that you're able to find these partnerships because then they're showing that they're weaving intentionality into their product lines as well and that they want to do better.
Totally. I mean, this is what we're trying to do, you know, we're trying to create this relationship with these big fashion houses, which, you know, the impact that they have is so much greater than the impact that we have. But if we're able to create a relationship with them and showcase them that not only do we create beautiful products, but we also have a great commitment to the earth, to the planet, to the people around it, why not? Why wouldn't you work with us? You know, we are the best supplier you can work with today. So this is kind of what we want to get into and the approach that we're going towards.
Yeah. Fantastic. I wonder if you'd be willing to share one or two stories of women who've gone through and become part of your artisan community.
There are so many stories. I think that's the best part of my job is the part that I love the most. So I think one of the stories that touches me the most is this woman. Her name is Sabine. Sabine, unfortunately, she lost her husband a few years ago and is a single mother with 3 kids. She has some mental instability that she's been working with our psychologist. And before she came to work at Made for a Woman, she would beg on the street for money. And I remember when she started 3 years ago, she didn't know how to weave. She didn't know how to, you know, do anything that we were doing in her company. And I do remember that her hands were always filled with blood. And it was really hard for her to learn how to weave because she just had a lot of blisters on her hands. And at the beginning of Made for a Woman, I remember I would interview every single person coming to understand better who they were, because for me, that is the most important part. Unfortunately, today we have 350 people. I know around 200 of them. I don't know the other 150. I hope I'll have time to do that. But at the beginning, it was so important that I create a relationship with these artisans because being CEO and founder, I mean, if you can't communicate your company's culture to the people that you work with, how do you make a difference? You know, so that was priority for me. And I remember that, you know, she'd come late, she'd fall asleep at the company when she was working. So I really tried to understand what was happening. And it was just the beginning. So she told me that, you know, after she was done working and Made for a Woman, she'd have to go home, take care of her kids. But then at 3 a.m, she'd have to get up every morning and go pick up water to sell. And she'd make 50 cents out of it. And so after picking up water all the way till 7 a.m., she'd come to Made for a Woman at 7:30 a.m. and work all day.
Oh my God.
And that's something, it was unacceptable. My heart broke. It was horrible. So, you know, what we did is we decided to see with her salary. We decided to raise her salary to make sure that she wouldn't have to pick up water anymore. Today, 3 years later, she had no blisters. Actually, I took a picture of her hands the other day because she sold me, she created in her home one of the most beautiful blankets, all handmade in crochet.
Wow.
Perfect product. And she sold it to me and I said, please show me your hands now, you know? And her life completely changed. Her mental stability completely changed. Her financial stability changed. It's crazy how you can do so much with so little. You know, you don't have to invest millions. It's really about like giving back dignity to people who unfortunately believe they don't deserve it. It's that simple. And it's so beautiful because she's one of the only people that comes to the office, comes says hi to you every morning and comes says bye to you every day. So no, her story is beautiful. And there are so many stories like this where we've had some specific cases where, you know, violence, women thinking that they deserve to be aggressed by their husbands or who really don't think that their opinion matters or who they are matters. And it's a work in progress. I'm not saying that these people who have been working for us for the past 3 years are great and doing amazing, but I can definitely advocate that they are doing much better and that their mental stability and also their lives are just so much more stable. Having stability in a job, being able to express yourself openly with your boss. It's so important. It's so, so important. So I could just go on and on about this because I love this part of my job. But
yeah, it's so evident though. And I love that you're also flagging, it doesn't mean everything's solved overnight for these women. It still takes time. The trauma doesn't just go away, right? It could bubble back up, but you're finding solutions to help them get through and figure out, okay, yes, it's unacceptable that she's having to get up to make this extra money. So let's just raise her rate a little bit.
Exactly.
That will take that burden away. And that will also create, she'll sleep better, she'll be healthier, she'll have more time to give mental capacity to her children when she's not working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an initial investment that you make. And that if you are a visionary, you see long-term, you know that it's going to come back. This investment is coming back. So in my opinion, investing in your employees is the biggest and most important investment a person should make. I work with people in my team. I read this quote and I thought it was absolutely amazing. And it's so true. To me, the way my colleagues, so people at my level whom I work with on a daily basis, their happiness and their satisfaction at this job is the most important thing for me, because then I know that if they do this well, people who are working under them feel good and be happy about where they work.
Yeah.
Like for me, employee satisfaction is the most important part of my job. And everything I do on a daily basis is to make sure that my colleagues are happy where they are able to express themselves and are able to move up, like it doesn't just stop there, but we have objectives. We have long-term, short-term objectives for themselves and for the company. And I think that's how, you grow together and you create passion and motivation because it's not always easy. How do you motivate your employees, your colleagues all the time? It's hard. So being able to concentrate in that and make that a priority for me is the most important.
Definitely. So you talked about short-term and long-term goals as the visionary of the company. I'd love to hear, because it sounds like you've done so much in so little time. And you've been able to achieve a lot. So I'd love to hear, where do you see the company going next?
So I would love, and this is what we're working on, I would love for that Made for Women become a business model that can be reproduced in other underdeveloped countries for emerging markets. We're actually creating a social team, kind of like a social impact kit while we're measuring KPIs. And we're trying to really understand what works and doesn't work. How can we make sure that as consultants, and that is the idea, is to be able to consult and to reproduce this kind of business model in other areas. Let's make guidelines. Let's put down everything that works for us and what doesn't work so that this way that other companies in African countries like ours can get there faster than we did. Every country has its own culture. There's obviously different ways of approaching situations. But let's make guidelines. Let's write down all the KPIs that work for us. And let's share this with other companies who are trying to do what we're doing, but maybe are having a harder time somewhere. Let's see how we can be of help, because the idea is not to be the only company that does this. We want other companies to be doing what we're doing, because I believe, the more lives you attain, the better you can do. And the more you change life and the world changes.
Yeah.
So it's really creating a model that is successful in this type of market, and let's reproduce it. And how do we do this? So measuring KPIs, not only that, working with the best luxury houses in the world, because that's where you make an impact, curate those relationships, make sure that they want to work with you. You want to be their best supplier. It's a 24/7 job. Make sure that it's kind of like you're selling your project. You want these companies to remember you. You want them to know that you're creating an impact, but you're working together. It's really about going hand in hand with luxury houses at the highest level and, making sure that they understand that Madagascar has the potential in craftsmanship and that we're not just a poor country. No, that we can actually improve our economy through the work that we do for you and together. So we want to be an exemplary company in that way, in the sense that we want to be a sustainable model, an innovative sustainable model for the fashion industry in the future. And at the same time, we want to be partners of these luxury houses in the long term to actually make changes in the fashion industry in general.
I love that. So fantastic. Because as you were speaking, I was thinking about, oh, is this something, I wonder what we could do in Ghana, to create craftsmanship and
Totally.
items. Or
Totally.
I'm also on a board I'm going to introduce you to called Influence Hers Foundation. And it's women of color from the States. And we take trips together and work on projects and pour money into nonprofits. And the founder has a project in Kenya. And so one thing that occurred to me is there any group, because I know a lot of people piecemeal, right? Like smaller brands who are doing something sustainable in wherever they are in the world. But is there a conference? Is there a women's organization? Is there anything that brings you all together to share these best practices? Or is that part of...
No.
Okay.
No, well, actually, it's funny you're talking about this because with a few girls who have created their own companies or are also trying to advocate sustainable fashion in the world, we're trying to get together to create a panel during Milan Fashion Week in February and try to connect with corporates as well and discuss the importance of, storytelling, of indigenous craftsmanship. How can the artisanal work and the corporate world get together, merge together, work together? It's not about creating capsule collections of 100 pieces. No, it's about creating huge collections. How do we transform? How do we stop producing and start repairing? All of these topics are so important. Like you're saying, there's not a space where we do that today. So it would be amazing to create that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's something that hopefully somebody hearing this or with this idea in your head now, you can help create this because it really is. It's so needed. It's so needed.
And I'm super down to work in Ghana and Kenya. I've never worked with any other African brand, to be honest, or any other African, community. So I would be super interested to see how that could work as well.
Amazing. I have so many follow-ups after this interview. I wanted to hear about some of the hardships that you had to go through because as entrepreneurs, when you're starting a business, there's so many times we could quit, right? There's so many things that come up. So I'd love to hear if you can share some of those and how you were able to push through those hurdles.
It's hard. It's really hard. I started when I was 27, entering a fashion industry. I had no contacts in fashion. I didn't know anybody. It's a lot of trial and error. I think one of the hardest things about this is that I'm very genuine about the company that I've created, which is the biggest reason why I think I have so much passion and also the reason why I keep going, even during the hard periods. It gives me purpose. It gives me a reason of existing. But it's really hard. Fashion is one of the most superficial industries in the world. When I started Italy pre-COVID, wasn't really into sustainable fashion. My products all have a QR code with a tag that leads you to the page of the woman who made it.
I love that.
I thought that was amazing. And, when I was showing this to clients, they didn't really care. All they care about was the aesthetics of the product.
Wow.
So I think trying to communicate with the fashion industry, and here we're talking about luxury because we're trying to position ourselves in the luxury aspect of fashion. Really trying to communicate the importance of more than just a product. You're selling a story. You're selling the lives of, people that go through these products. You're not just selling a tangible product and making them understand that you created a company that's not only about making and producing, but you created a company where the human factor plays a huge part of it. And therefore, respecting their environment. We're trying not to create a stress-free environment. You're here as a startup, you need to make money to keep going. But at the same time, you don't want to create a company that is linked only to money making, right? Mm-hmm. So really finding the balance there and trying to communicate it properly to your consumers or to your clients, making them understand what you're trying to do and knowing that they don't always care. I think that has been one of the hardest parts of really trying to merge two worlds together. But I do think that people are starting to really emphasize on the importance of the well-being of a human person before the product. It's a lot of work. We're still not there yet, but I think that has been one of the hardest part of this job. One of the other hardest part of this job is taking a 27-year-old girl seriously. I work with older people, much older people who have a lot more experience than I do, but I'm very clear with my vision. I know where I want to go. I know what I want to do. And, sometimes they don't understand the vision. They don't go that what you want to do, and they're very fashion oriented. So, trying to find your way around that, not losing yourself, because sometimes it's easy to lose yourself too, and trying to stick to your strategy, not losing focus. Not losing focus is so, so important.
Yeah.
So I think that those have been pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
You will. Since the time that you've been in Milan, were you able to start shifting perceptions? Have you seen a difference that people are responding more?
Yeah, definitely. There has been a difference after COVID. There are a lot of communities that came along in the fashion industry in Italy that are changing and shaping the fashion industry. It's hard. It's really hard. But there are inspiring humans that I work with and that are actually making it happen. And I do want to say that Made for Women is also part of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And when it comes to, and I love that because what you're saying is relatable, I think, in any industry. A lot of people who are maybe, older and often, in PR and marketing in the US, a lot of the head decision makers at the big companies are white men or women who, have grown up a certain way in the industry, and things are changing and they've evolved so much in this digital age. And so we need more faces like yours and like mine and like people with diversity in their backgrounds. To that point, did you have to get a lot of startup funding? Were you able to find that, or was that another barrier? Because I know in the US, that's still a big barrier, especially for women of color.
So actually, I started out with a personal funding. And to be honest, I think 2 years in, we got really lucky because one of our clients, which today is one of our biggest clients, had been making huge orders, and it actually saved our lives.
Amazing.
So and I think one of the things that I keep doing is trying to find new clients who are going to be long-term clients. And that's what, last year, actually, it was our first year of being a profitable company. And we were able to pay back all of the money that we had borrowed. So for the moment, we haven't had too many issues there, but I am looking for impact investors for the next few years. So that's definitely something I'm going to start getting into.
Nice. Well, congratulations. To be able to be profitable that early on is such a blessing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it is. I'm very grateful and super blessed about it. Very, very much so.
What does it look like if I go to your website, Made for Women, or if I go to your social media, right? And I want to purchase something, what is the process? For instance, if I am purchasing something for the United States?
Okay, so actually today you won't have any custom fees to pay. Shipping is free. So it's really easy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Really easy. And all of our products are actually all in pre-order, let's say, because we don't have any stock.
Nice.
We believe in slow fashion. So the moment that you order a product, it's made for you. We also customize it if you want your initials on it. We allow customers to decide for themselves if they want something additional on the product. We really want it to be very special and unique for every single person. So it's easy peasy.
That is that's not what I was expecting to hear. That is really amazing.
Yeah.
Eileen, is there any one takeaway that you'd like people to really get out of your message and out of this interview?
I think that today we have a huge responsibility on this planet due to, the climate crisis, but also the human crisis. There's a lot of anxiety on a daily basis. I feel like when I'm talking to a lot of friends, people, there's just so much happening. I really do think it's so important to have a purpose and to have a reason of being. I think what you do in your life, anyways, for me, being able to work at Made for Women every day and being able to help as many people as I can really is one of the reasons why, I'm happy to be on this earth today. I think there's so much suffering, so much misery that being able to give back, giving back in general and doing good is the most important thing in the world, whether it's, creating your own business or working on community service or doing something small for a friend or a family member. I just think it's the most important thing. And it's what gives me a reason to keep going, to being who I am, the closest, to my inner self, the most authentic part of myself. So honestly, I really do think it's so important to do what you love, to be passionate about something, finding passion somewhere, and, having, the balls to do it, like taking risks, being woke, because we don't live for that long, and you feeling as much alive as you can on this planet. It's so important. So that's kind of what I try to do every day of my life.
Fantastic. Love that. And do you have a favorite quote or mantra or some words of wisdom that you live by that help you keep motivated every day?
I do. I actually have this African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. That's kind of what I live. I'm CEO and founder of Make for a Woman, but I wouldn't be able to do what I do today if I didn't have the people that I work with on a daily basis. So yeah, I really do believe in that.
Fantastic. This has been so fun and enlightening. And I just appreciate your energy, enthusiasm. You can see how much passion you have for this, for the sustainability, the fashion, and also for the women and all of the people's lives who you're affecting. So thank you for doing all of the work that you're doing. Thank you for pouring all of this goodness into the world. We really need it. And I hope more people can take an example from you.
And you too. Thank you so much for taking the time and hearing all about the brand. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to the audience for listening to another inspiring story on Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert to share their story and inspire you in your business. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.